So More Good News Season 2 is all about people doing good through following their passions, good for their own souls and for others. I'm Kate Cherichello, and welcome to today's episode. Let's spread a little more goodness in the world. One disclaimer for episode 17. 16 episodes had no syncing issues. Unfortunately, this episode was not so lucky. Thankfully, Jill's video and voice match, and that's the important one. My side, however, does not, and apologies for this visual issue, but you should be able to hear it all just fine.
Today's guest is Jill Harrison. I am so thrilled she took time out of her insanely busy schedule to be here today. Thank you so much, Jill. I have known Jill for probably 20 years now, which is wild. And I actually had another guest on the show who I also met through the theater that we grew up in. Heidi Fries Saldana was a guest a couple weeks ago. Yes. So here's another person from that world in New Jersey. Today, Jill is a theater director based in Philly who spent a lot of time in New York as well. She founded Directors Gathering, and that is putting it too simply. She does so much more, and I can't wait for you to hear it from her. So Jill, first, besides thank you for being here, I just want to know who you are and what you do in your own words.
Sure. Yes. What a fun question. And I'm so grateful to be here with you, Kate. So yes, I'm once again, Jill Harrison. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I am a variety of things. I'm a hybrid freelancer, an artpreneur, if you will. Yes. Isn't that fun? That was a fun term that I collected over the last couple of years. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm an entrepreneur in the arts world. So I am a director. I'm an educator. I'm a connector, and I am also the founder and executive director of Directors Gathering, also known as DG, which is a continuous gathering place, currently digital gathering place for freelance theater directors throughout the country. So DG's really, we're community centric, and we like spreading good news about freelance theater directors.
Very on brand.
Freelance theater directors, their vision, their connectivity, and how they're culture makers. I'm also a mom. I have a 6 3/4-year-old. She's very committed to that 3/4, Stella. And I think that's my descriptor.
Great. Oh, and a husband that she would not have met if it weren't for me. Let us just put that out.
I was thinking about that. Thank you. True story. Kate
I feel like it's one of my few things that I can capitalize on.
Oh my gosh. I will forever be grateful. Yes, Kate invited me to come choreograph her high school senior musical. My now husband was invited by the director, Amy Howe, to come and music direct the production. And both of us were like, I don't know. We don't really do that anymore. And then it was like, okay, let's do it. And the rest is history.
Such a neat story. It's just the most random and perfect meeting. Yes.
Here. And then
so Jill, my second question is just sorry, there was a little delay, so keep going.
Oh, no worries. I was just going to also say like how special it was and how much it still means to us that you're in our life, and that you and your parents were at our wedding, and just then we got to see you when you came to New York for the first time, and it's been and now Jeff has entered your life, and a dog. I see that there's a furry baby that has arrived.
Mm-hmm. There is. Miss Olive.
Oh,
She is. Yeah. Well, Jill has always been so good to me for all these years. So grateful. Speaking of all these years, tell me a little bit more about how you where you are now.
Yeah. So again, connectivity with Kate. So I grew up in the theater as an actor, and then figured out pretty soon. I mean, I was like in my middle school years, starting to figure out that I'm really interested in how this event is made, how the lights get turned on, why they're chosen in a certain color, how bodies move through space. And how, most importantly, that still remains true for everything I do. Two parts. One is community. So the community of the people around us, and then also the engagement with the audience of who we're sharing these stories or this event and experience with. So I had this desire to keep in that theatrical world, that community-based world. I didn't know if it was going to be acting. That was something that was tricky as a young artist, because acting was pretty much the option, right? Like when you're making theater as a kid, it's pretty much you're the performer. And so that took me all the way through to college. About my sophomore year in college, I was still like, I just want to be here in this theater environment, but I really don't think I want to be on stage anymore. I care so much more deeply about my fellow actors. And yeah, just the community, the event, this greater impact. And so by my junior year, I had some really awesome professors. I went to Lehigh University, and they were starting to see that burning desire to be a part of the larger event, and encouraged me to take directing. So I started taking directing. I did that track, and I ended up getting to direct on their main stage my senior year, which was really exciting. I look back on that experience and those resources and go, I mean, getting to direct a fully realized musical was just a treat and a gift and a privilege.
And your skill, it was fantastic.
Thank you. Did you? That's what you and your mom saw it, right?
Yeah. Yes. I've never laughed so hard. Oh my gosh. So good.
It was magical. Like I was just so fortunate with the folks who showed up to be a part of that, again, that community and that piece, and to have faculty members have that kind of faith in me meant a lot. And then sent me on yet another path of, again, this sense of like community and then education and folks having faith in each other. And faith in each other, no matter where you are on your trajectory, whether that be your professional craft or your education. So I set out into the world and it was like, all right, it's time to be a freelance theater director, whatever that means. Off you go to the great big city of Manhattan, and Astoria, Queens, which is where I got to live for several years. And I got a day job, which was a lot of temping, and which is a really awesome setup. And I miss that, of being able to, like, as a freelancer, have a day job that you can like bop in on and do, and then like bop out of it. There's something really helpful for that when you're also trying to do a different career path or lifestyle that's separate from the like 9 to 5 career path. So I did that for a while, and then it was time for grad school, and I went to Temple University in Philly, which brought Tom and I, my husband and I, to Philly. I got my MFA in directing at Temple, and went through yet another like cocoon shedding of like recognizing that, I want more. I want to be involved even further than a director who is helping guide vision and an experience for a story and a production, I really would love to know, like, who's coming to this? Who's being reached out to? What is the image for the production and for the poster? What are the processes behind curating the entire season? And so on. Community engagement. Who's coming for post-show discussions? So that a colleague of mine at the time, again, I'm very fortunate to have folks who I put trust in and were observing this sense of, oh, maybe you should try. And so between grad school and graduating was like, I think maybe you're a producer. So that is true. I am a producer. Yeah. And I am a gatherer of community and a connector. Post-grad school, it's been like the last 10 years has been really where I've centered that entrepreneur spirit and process, because it's, again, a little off the beaten path. Right. I mean, we're starting to see line producer positions and creative producer positions, and looking back at it, I'm like, oh, that's probably like a job I would be applying for. But at the time when I was setting out, that wasn't quite a thing yet. So it's a lot of forging my own path. And the Directors Gathering came around in 2014, mainly because it gets lonely forging your own path. And isolating, and freelance directors, we do that, right? We show up for a couple of weeks, we do our job, and then we go onwards. There's usually only one of us. So that's hard after a while. And I'm starting to just witness here in Philly, a lot of freelance directors having similar sentiments and wanting opportunities for further training, and maybe didn't have the interest, resources, or time to go back to grad school. So it was like, how could we fill in that gap? How could we fill in the gap of, again, there's usually one of us in a process, so we don't get to really see each other in process or talk to each other. Also there's pockets, right? There's cities and regional centers all over the country. And so how do you figure out how to expand beyond, within Philly and then like beyond Philly? There are regional directors all over Tennessee, right? There are regional directors all over Utah, right? How do we find ways to connect and create a community for us as we do the work? Meanwhile, I got my MFA and I've been teaching. So the day job went from temping to being a freelance professor. So I've been teaching, playwriting, new work, directing, acting, visioning, at a variety of universities throughout the Philly area. And then last year I launched my own virtual directing workshop platform. So I've been teaching folks on that platform, because this idea of visioning specifically for directors and being able to create a path and a point of view tends to be into the film world, the cinematic world, right? Like you see a director's eye in a film. Well, a director's eye, cinematographer's eye, and an editor's eye. But the director is the one that's really guiding that visual experience. Where in theater, we are doing that. The theater director is doing that, but it's not nearly as at the forefront. And so there's not as many experience or opportunities for a director, especially ones who are emerging or early career directors, to be asked a bunch of questions about who they are as people, who they are as artists, what projects they do and why. If it's a paycheck job, like I'm going to direct this show because I need to pay a bill. Again, like how do you get into that process? How do you take care of yourself in that process? How do you take care of other people in that process? So that's been exciting to pivot a bit into that world. There it is, Kate.
Well, what an example of taking all your skill sets and just every variety and exploring them all and then finding a way to bring them all together under one roof and fulfilling that need nobody looked to before, or at least I sure didn't know of anything like what you've done with the Directors Gathering and your platform and everything. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. It's someone, I think it's a saying that I've heard before, but if you don't see it, make it. Right. So if it doesn't exist and you think it should exist, then make it exist. And that's something that I'm continuing to try to do. Yeah.
Fantastic. And Jill, now with everything, obviously you've been doing virtual programming and whatnot throughout the pandemic. How else does your world look different since last March? And is there anything that, well, you can't wait to get back to, maybe a sense of normal or new normal, or anything that you hope continues that has changed for the better that you've seen?
Yeah. Yes. I love that question. I mean, and it's multifaceted, right? Because so specific to my work, theater making, I mean, I directed a production that was supposed to be fully realized and in person last October. Well, I do this October of 2020. It was when it was supposed to be. All these years are now starting to blend. But then it got moved and then made to be completely virtual for February, this past February. So we went from being, completely thinking we were going to be in person and having a full creative team and a full regional theater process to then, okay, maybe we'll do a virtual reading at some point. To then, by the time we were produced for February, everyone was zoomed out. Everyone was this a point of I can only hear a play read on a Zoom screen so much. And by January of 2021, folks were I'm out, and I'm done. I don't want to make that kind of experience. So the theater company, it's Passage Theater Company, and they're in Trenton, New Jersey. And they're remarkable. They have done an incredible job with their community of artists, especially. And they were so open to working with me and the playwright, Jacqueline Goldfinger. The piece was Babel by Jacqueline Goldfinger. And what was really fortunate about the piece is that Jackie also had written this play in the not so distant future, but there's components of it that are quite virtual. So we were able to lean into that and play with that. And so it really lent itself to a virtual world. So that was really helpful. I kept on saying, thank you, Jackie. But we followed that, and something that's tricky, right? Because there's an accessibility that I think is really exciting about a virtual platform and a virtual world, right? So this piece, I was able to direct and share with friends and family from all over the country, where in pre-pandemic times, whoever could make it physically is who would have seen the piece, right? So that's really neat that I had family sitting together in Washington, D.C. watching this production, or in California. So that was really cool. I think the hard part and what I'm missing is the palpable, being able to be in person, in breath, hearing another person breathe while witnessing something happening while other people who are making it are breathing. And just that collective humanity and in-person humanity, that community I really miss. And I find myself, whether it be a director's gathering, programmer event, a board meeting, or a rehearsal process, or in teaching especially, I keep doing, I get closer and closer to the screen. Folks are whoa. And I'm but I just want to reach in and be able to have that visceral, metaphysical experience that a screen doesn't allow us to do. I'm actually like, I want that. And so I'm figuring out how to do that. It's being more pointed. So it's informing directors gathering and even my own work of like, okay, so moving forward from a sustainable stand, like what can we afford is like, do we do one in-person, like one big in-person thing a year? And then other things are companion experiences that are virtual, right? So people, again, are accessible, have the accessibility to it, but there's still an in-person thing to look forward to and be a part of. And with rehearsing and the other, like these multifaceted experiences is like as a parent. So originally when we were looking at a rehearsal schedule where it was going to be a typical equity rehearsal process, having childcare for that experience is tricky. Passage again was willing to work with me, which is great, of whether it was going to be evening or day rehearsals. My husband's also in the arts. He runs the Performing Arts Center at Swarthmore College. So he does a nights and weekends schedule when things are not in a pandemic. So it's a lot of like ships passing, and then Stella like lives in theaters. So, I mean, super cool for when you're like, you know, between the ages of 2 and 6 3/4. I don't know how long that's gonna last, which is understandable. So that's just the thing, is it's like how much of a paycheck of a freelance theater maker is going towards childcare, right? How much of that person's time, who's a parent and a theater maker, being split? Like my brain and my heart and my soul is constantly being like, split in many directions. And I don't think that's just specific to the medium of theater. I mean, most working parents and working guardians have that similar challenge. And it's something that we've watched and I've experienced personally with the pandemic, which has been really tricky again, because in some parts, like Stella had virtual kindergarten this year. We got to witness things that she discovered, or I mean, she just started reading this year and is like reading chapter books like that. We got to be a part of, which that's good. That's good news. Like getting to be present, you know, and just getting to witness that with her. I really, and getting to have like another year's worth of, let's sit down and have lunch together. Like, let's like, tell me about this, or how do you feel about that? Which I really appreciated. But also on the other hand, with the virtual world for parenting and folks who are guardians for other people, no matter their age, you're never off. Like you were constantly, so Stella was doing kindergarten. At one point it was Stella doing kindergarten, me working, teaching online, teaching folks who've never taken an acting class before in their whole lives how to act on a computer screen. So it's like, oh, overnight, you're now a film actor. Congratulations.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye. So that, you know, was wild. And then Tom is trying to keep like some semblance of routine and, you know, control from his computer screen that he moved over from the Performing Arts Center into our house. So it was bonkers. Yeah, it's, you know, and I think that's also something I also, I'm full of quotes lately. I also read recently someone, like a parent, saying, you know, everyone wants things to open up. Like, we're ready. We're back. It's time. And parents are like, what? Like, we're like crawling out from underneath, like things being like, what year is it? What is happening? You know, what does ready mean? What does we're back mean? Like, right?
Oh my God.
So that's been a very interesting experience and challenge to be like, we have to take a breath and be able to take some stock of like what it means to transition through these experiences in our life. But yeah, that's been COVID.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. I all the people with kids going through school and everybody in the one space for this whole time. Can't imagine you get extra gold stars and
Yes.
extra points for heaven with that one.
Yes. And I think that like,
Yeah.
and that's why also to further like point to folks who have been doing like the amazing good work is we had friends and colleagues in our lives who live nearby who became like our neighborhood family because we couldn't. My parents are usually with us when it's not COVID, but they went to Vermont in March 2020, and that's where they had to stay. So all of my siblings and I, we all ended up being in this place of we can't physically help each other. Like we can maybe put our kids to entertain each other for a little while on Zoom, but it's not like my sister could drop by or like we could take the kids for the weekend or my parents could help us for a week. Like up until this spring, that wasn't an option. So there was a lot of like interesting shifts for us of like our neighbors. We celebrated every major holiday with our neighbors from last June to like New Year's of this year. Because also they have kids. So a lot of us who also had kids, it wasn't like we could, safely distance as much, especially during the winter months with kids to travel or any of that. So our neighbors became that, and they were the folks that we leaned on and they leaned on us. We have some neighbors who don't have children themselves who would come over and be like, we will sit outside, we'll mask up, we'll play outside with Stella, you and Tom go for a couple of hours and be humans, like to the park. So that was our neighbors. And they also did that too, just like they offered that. Like that to me, to like think beyond your own challenges that are happening with just your everyday, to then look around and be like, oh, people with kids could use some support if we have the capacity to do that. So that, it was immense, and it was helpful to feel a little less isolated too.
Wow, that's an amazing neighborhood.
Yes, we are very grateful for them.
Wow. That's also a beautiful segue into my next question, which you just gave a great example of, but maybe you have others too. Just goodness that you've observed through what you do. And I love just the neighbor story. That's amazing. But also through Directors Gathering, maybe through the connections you've seen and the opportunities open up. Any stories you'd like to share?
Sure. So something that through Directors Gathering specifically that I have found, so the American playwright Paula Vogel offers her students and colleagues that we rise in circles. We pay attention to those around us. We grow along with them. They grow along with us. We grow more. And that might not necessarily be like what the rise is, not necessarily vertical. The rise could be expansion. The rise could be diving deeper and be more immediate in a moment. But I love this sense of community and organic awareness with that kind of journey and process. And so that is something that her offer carries. I carry that with me throughout Directors Gathering and directing and producing and teaching. And I also feel like I see that so much. I see the folks in our theater community here in Philly and now beyond. Something that the virtual world offered Directors Gathering is we now have members that live all over the country, which like literally overnight we went from having only Philly-based Directors Gathering members to Directors Gathering members literally all over the country. One actually was, she was guesting with us and was living in Madrid. So we even had someone representing the COVID lockdown in Madrid. Like literally that was what she was experiencing while calling into our gatherings. So you just like this huge net has just been cast. And the the opportunity and the gifts to be able to witness people's realities all over the world was incredibly remarkable. Watching how resilient people are, how kind people are, how generous people are. I also have witnessed this past year how people, and we've been given the opportunity to do this because there's been, it's all relative, but a bit more time and breath to think about what inclusivity means, to think about what accessibility means, to think about what diversity means and safety, and to really recognize what those ideas and then the necessary actions that go along with those ideas are, and how that permeates, and how you as the human are making that permeate throughout all of the facets of your life. And also all of those aspects within not just an in-person world, but a virtual world, right? So how do you build a safe space in a Zoom room, and potentially a multi-generational Zoom room, because there are guardians who have young folks walking in and out of spaces, right? That we're having to be mindful of. And just, I keep coming back to like the generosity and the resilience of a community. And just being willing, the bravery to be willing to name personal limitations and boundaries, being able to name where either previous action or current action have been problematic or challenging for people, and being able to work together to change those challenging, problematic environments. So I have been very grateful to be a part of a lot of those conversations and a lot of those actions. And like in these pockets of directors gathering, in Zoom rooms for educational purposes, and on the streets of Philadelphia. Philly has been, this past year in Philadelphia has been remarkable. It's been remarkable. And I've also been grateful that Stella has been able to witness as much as she's witnessed this past, like 18 months, for her to see, and for her to see like the breadth of everything from like your connection and the gifts of that, and the gratitude and the joy of our community and our neighborhood, to marching for Black Lives Matters down the street in one of our other neighborhoods in Philly, to like being a part of that. It's just been really necessary and great to have her be a part of that. Yeah, that's my response.
That's all, Jill. Wow. What a year and a half. Well, since when did you start doing everything you're doing?
Yeah.
Years and years.
Right? It's like the pivots.
Unbelievable.
The pivots. It's been
wow. Yeah. Well, Jill, yeah. Last question then. Do you have anything you find yourself telling, either you yourself, telling your students, telling other directors over and over again? Mantra. I know you said you love quotes. Yeah. Anything like that.
Yes, I love this question so much. So if I may, I have a little plug, because it's going to be open and available for anyone who's interested. It's a virtual experience. Anyone's interested in coming. So Cece Wright is Directors Gatherings, Director of Membership and Engagement. And so Cece and I have been curating a virtual gathering at the end of this month, on Sunday, June 27th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We now need to say Eastern Standard Time because we have members who are not on Eastern Standard Time. But the gathering is going to be an opportunity to consider what it means to create community, and as a director or collaborators or people who like theater, to create community with two different methods that we're intrigued by. So the first one is, so Priya Parker is a writer, a gathering extraordinaire, a event. I mean, like an event guru. I'm beyond like planner. Like she, I mean, works on like G7 summits. Like she's a remarkable human. But she's written this book called The Art of Gathering. And she's just actually released a companion piece that you can follow her on Instagram. And she's released a companion piece that's The Art of Gathering now, and what it means to be gathering in a virtual space, a hybrid space. But she just creates a sense of like journey and map, if you will, of how to connect with folks. And, you know, what we love so much about it is theater is humanity, right? Theater is the artistic expression of humanity. So her book is about all facets and types of humanity. And so for us, we're like, well, theater fits right in there. And it's directing as well. So that's Priya. And then the other piece of literature that we're looking at is Sun Tzu's The Art of War, to look at this piece. And Cece has shared that because when she was in graduate school, it was recommended that The Art of War be read and considered for what the functionality and necessity is to gather on behalf of and with people in a life or death situation. So what are the necessities? Right? Like, it's like, whoa. Because at first you're like, the art of war. Okay. But when you start to break it down and read the text, you're like, actually, no, this is really useful for all of humanity to pay attention to, like, intention and what you do for yourself and what you do for others, and how you do that. And so we'd say it's a grand experiment. We're like, what is the intersection of this kind of way of thinking? And because also, like, teaching folks how to direct, gathering folks who are already directing, like, we're all having to, in a way, relearn and pivot what we're doing. But we're also really looking towards how to help fellow humans as directors do that, because we feel like that's probably even more important than technique and skill. Like, technique and skill are imperative. I'm an educator. They're important. But, like, you need to be a human first. And we need to help that. So, you know, these kind of out of the box concepts of, like, the art of gathering and the art of war, as, you know, within the world of theater, are things that I've been paying attention a lot more to things outside of a theater. Like for example, my sister recognized a couple of weeks ago, I was just going on and on about Michaela Cole's I May Destroy You. And Michaela Cole is a writer and a performer. So I May Destroy You and Chewing Gum are two of her, and they're television shows. And they are remarkable pieces of art. Like, they are out of this world. And she has a couple of different speeches that she's just amazing. But I've been watching a lot of her work, and there's a couple other, like, television pieces that I've been watching. And my sister was like, Jill, I can't remember the last time talking to you about television, because usually we're in theaters, right? Like, I don't watch TV because I'm usually running around and making theater or teaching others how to make theater. So I would always be like, I don't watch that, or I can't, you know. And it's been awesome to take a breath for a little while and just, like, consume other mediums, consume literature, consume sitting on a front porch and, like, being very quiet and being like, wow, what does this block sound like? Who's walking, right? Like, having people wear masks for the last 18 months, you see a lot of people's eyes, right? So it's like, that's been remarkable, of how do you engage with humans with only your eyes, right? And, like, body, and also your body, your physicality, like, what does that convey when half of your face is masked? So those, like, that's what I've been following the most, of just, like, paying attention to things around me in the moment. And then, like, there's a mantra that I've had for a very long time that I usually offer. which is I am vulnerable, I am strong, I am vulnerable because I am strong. Yeah, I love that dichotomy of vulnerability and strength. And you can only be strong if you're vulnerable, and only be vulnerable if you're strong. And I think the more that we consider, like, I also offer, like, especially with teaching or making theater or living, but it's like when someone's like, it's either this or it's that. And you're like, okay, well, what about if it's both? Right? How about both? And I think if anything, this last 18 months have been like, yeah, it's gonna be both. You're gonna, whether we like it or not, we're gonna be living the complexity and the dichotomy and both. And I think there's a gift there for us because humanity is complex. Living is complex. And that's great. That's good news.
There was so much in those last couple of minutes. I need to go back and write everything down. That, you know what, something that I really just so subtle that you added in there was the mention of humanity, and that's theater, and just, living and how it's so involved. And it goes back to be something we knew just even as kids, with what a difference it can make when you are a part of the theater. You don't have to be a professional actor, but even if you just are that person taking a beginning acting class, just to do something in life that makes you think out of your little box. And for many people, theater is that. Other people find it in other ways, and I think you just so beautifully, hit on that concept in so many ways. It's humanity, looking at it different ways, listening to other people's cultures and opinions, and always be learning more. Jill, so fantastic. Can you tell us how we can find you and more about Directors Gathering, all your links and handles?
Sure. So Directors Gathering, we have a website. You can find us at www.directorsgathering, all one word, .org. And that is where you can find out more about the gathering that's coming up. You can find out about membership if you're interested in becoming a director member or a collaborator member, or if you're interested in supporting Directors Gathering and our members and the work the community we make for them. And then you can find out more about me. I have my handles. Oh my goodness, all the handles, because that's another thing of this past year. It was like all the social media. Need balance, need breath. But you can, I'm on Instagram. I'm actually on Instagram, Kate, you're gonna laugh, as Jill Harrison Snyder. We were talking about like my name. But my professional name is usually Jill Harrison, but that was taken on Instagram. So it's all lowercase, one word, Jill Harrison Snyder on Instagram. I'm on Facebook as Jill Harrison. I'm on Twitter as Jill Harrison. I'm on LinkedIn as Jill Harrison. And I'm hoping,
darn Instagram.
Yes, and I'm so close to having my own website. So close. Learn how to do that. So
good skills. Excellent, Jill. Thank you. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for spreading good news. Well, we need it, and thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. We need all the good news we can get. This is Kate Cherichello. Please follow me at positively_Kate on Instagram for more. And if you have stories of good news that you know need to be shared, please do send me a message. If you enjoyed today's episode, it would mean so much if you shared it with your friends and left a review. Thank you, and see you next time.